The chair recognizes Alderwoman Taylor.
So I'm in my office because I've been meeting with my young people all day. But what I want to say is the person that we have not heard from is the person that all of us voted for, who is Superintendent Snelling about shot spotters. This is worth continuing to having a conversation. But what y'all won't say is, why don't people call the police? I'll wait. Why don't they? Because there is not a trust between the community and the police. This same administration that y'all talking bad about gave the police more money. So I'm confused. Well, we got a police problem. We got a people don't want to do their job problems. And don't get me wrong, raise your hand as an older person if you've ever been in the middle of a crossfire and you had to call the police. Raise your hand if you had a relative killed and it was because somebody on the block called the police and it took them forever to come and that person died. Isn't this worth having a conversation? Isn't this worth us talking to? Alderwoman Scott, I apologize and I'm sorry that you have those issues in your ward. So do I. But what I don't want to do is waste taxpayer dollars on things that don't work. And I'm not clear of whether this is the best use of our money. And so it is worth having the conversation. We all voted for Superintendent Snelling. Most of us did. Almost everybody. And so we need him to be involved in this conversation. This is not one or the other. And that's public safety is not technology. Public safety is I'm looking out my window and I'm calling the police because I got a relationship with them to tell them something that I see. And for folks who don't got shot spotter in their ward, you might want to be quiet because you don't know. You all have very safe communities. You all have the resources you need. Some of our communities don't. And so I could agree with Alderwoman Scott of why she would be upset. But I want us to have the conversation. And it's funny, nobody wants to talk about it. Because we gave the police more money despite saying don't do it. And this ain't about what the movement wants. This has been issues for years. Y'all forget that every month we're giving money away because of bad police conduct? We forgot that part, huh? It is our responsibility and our duty to have healthy conversations and be equipped with all of the right information. And I don't feel like we have. There was a young lady who came to committee on police fire and talked about another system that we might could use. I've heard nobody talk about that system yet. And so we make a decision to spend taxpayer dollars. It needs to be an inclusive conversation with both sides. This one-sided part, y'all do that too often. At the end of the day, y'all, safety is not technology. We know what good and safe communities look like. It happened on the north side. Why can't it happen on the south and west sides? I'll wait. I tell y'all all the time, we have a responsibility to work together and work with each other. And that's the expectation of everybody. You don't get to pick and choose. To the folks who are on the city council, who've been firefighters, who've been EMTs, I respect you being in those spaces. I respect the work that you have. We are in a different time now. And we're in a time where we all have to work together. And I want to say I can speak for Alderman Irvin. That is what he is asking for. At the end of the day, y'all do a lot. You know what my young people said when they came in my office? City council is exhausting. Because we arguing and fighting around the wrong things. Our city is not going to move until we realize we got to work together. At the end of the day, Monique, before I digress, I'm just real sick of y'all. Because we won't have the real conversations. We won't be honest with each other. We won't be honest about what we actually have. And until we do that, this is going to be Ringling Brother Universal Soul Service. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Alder Sigcho Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I think Alderperson Jeanette Taylor said as I would. Just want to point out some very important facts. I think that as Alderwoman Taylor mentioned, this is definitely the time for us to take the time and do justice to our constituents by looking at the facts and the data. Fact of the matter is that the Inspector General report is very clear about the ineffectiveness of ShotSpotter. This has been backed also by a report by the state's attorney, but furthermore, and more recently, a very concerning report by Senator Markey, Senator Warren, Wyden, as well as Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, that have called on DHS and the Office of Inspector General to look at the ShotSpotter violations on potential violations on Title VI, as well as the Civil Rights Act of 1964. That is why I think it's important that, yes, indeed, we leave politics aside to look at the facts. And the fact of the matter is that we gotta look into community-led health initiatives that had already been discussed and being implemented in many of our neighborhoods. I do think that we also gotta take on the offer of Superintendent Snelling, who did say that he would like to take at least 6 months of the time that has transpired between now and then to look at alternatives that actually work. But I tell you that we have today does not work.
Chair recognizes Alder Fuentes.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's a couple of things that I want to point to, and first, Alderman Moore, I want to say I respect you, and I respect your want and need to continue to make our communities safer. And I want to be able to respectfully disagree and debate. But when doing that, we have to be careful also what we call each other. I want folks to refrain from our opposition to ShotSpotter as the fact that we are only movement activists to make campaign promises. Because this is probably the most data-driven position to be in. There are bodies of research that have said that ShotSpotter is ineffective at the local, state, and federal level.
The chair recognizes Alderman O'Shea. There's a point of order. The chair recognizes Alderman Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just as a reminder to the body, Rule 6 specifically states that all conversations have to be directed to you, and I've heard my colleague referenced by name at least 8 times already for this resolution. So I'd ask that you enforce Rule 6 in this room so that all direction is to you.
The chair recognizes Alderman O'Shea.
Thank you, Mr. President. We could debate for another 6 hours. We see people arguing for ShotSpotter, people arguing against. What I just continually to be confounded by is that several months ago, it was decided to spend an exorbitant amount of money, almost $10 million, to continue this. This technology that the majority of the people in this body, based on that vote, don't feel is important. It doesn't achieve a goal. And it's fact. It was that $10 million was spent to carry it through the Democratic National Convention. Now, what is the Democratic National Convention? It's congressional leaders, it's millionaires, it's political elitists coming to our city. I would argue the very same people that many of us are complaining about have failed us and failed our city and failed black and brown communities. So we're spending almost $10 million to continue this right up until the end of the Democratic National Convention. Then we're getting rid of it. If we can spend almost $10 million to protect the political elite, what are we doing about the people in Washington Park or Inglewood or South Shore or North Lawndale, the neighborhoods that lead the city in gun violence? Whatever you think about ShotSpotter, No one spoke up when we said, spend $9.5 million to carry it right up until the end of the convention, when all the big popular elitists leading our Democratic Party are here. Sounds to me, folks, like everybody in this room is more concerned about looking out for them than they out looking for the famous term we hear here over and over again, black and brown communities, because that's where the majority of the shooting victims live. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Alderman Mosley.
Thank you, Mr. President. As we have these conversations, to those who do not have ShotSpotter in your ward, I would ask you to ground yourself in this: to talk less and to listen more. A lecture will not work. If you want to talk about the inequities and public safety and what that looks like beyond just policing, let's talk about our infrastructure. This weekend, I had the opportunity to really just clean up my block. And what rang out the most to me, living within a 2-block radius of 4 schools, that there are children walking to schools on broken sidewalks that's filled with broken glass and streets riddled with potholes. What inspiration is that on your way to school? That is where we can use the energy of how we can look out for better or other wars that are not ours. As we have this conversation, listen to more of what is coming from the wards that is represented or have ShotSpotters. Alderman Moore, Mr. President, is doing exactly what he's supposed to do. His residents have come to him and said, we need this tool. There are more and more that make up the ecosystem of safety in our communities that are saying we need this tool. Now, we want to make it more effective, then let's do that. But to simply just do away with it is not acceptable. And again, if we want to have the conversation about how you can come and help wars like the 21st ward be better, then let's have a conversation about infrastructure. Let's have a conversation about menu dollars that we all get the same amount of money to improve our inside miles when there's a vast difference between the amount of mileage that we have. That is a part of public safety. We see it when we do operations clean, and we have the full force of city services going throughout an area to improve it because we know that it can improve public safety. Let's start there. Let's direct some of that energy there. And let's listen to more of us who have this tool in our ward so that it can be better, so that our streets can be safer, so that our city can be stronger. That is the Chicago that we deserve to live in. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Are there any other alders that wish to speak to this? Okay, the chair, you would like to close. Okay. The chair recognizes Alderwoman Cruz. Start there.
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree with my colleague, Alderman Mosley. I think this is a time for us to listen to each other and those who have this technology in our ward. I have been taking the time to listen to my residents who either we go to their house to speak with them regarding this ShotSpotter technology, or those who come to our meetings with the police. And what our residents are saying is, we need this technology. We need to feel some sort of safety in our communities. And while I understand that this technology doesn't fix or doesn't address, I'd rather say, the root causes of crime, I totally agree. Is this prevent certain things? No, but however, it's a tool that alerts our police officer that there is something going on in those neighborhoods, those streets, whatever it might be. So what I ask is for that time for us to also to listen to those aldermen that have shot spotters in our ward, but also to have both ends of the spectrum here, whether it is those who support it or those who are not, or even our police officer and even our Superintendent Snelling to be part of this conversation as well. We have to listen for all ends of this conversation. But also, if shot spotters is actually gonna be indeed not be part of this anymore, we also need to know, I think it's the right thing for us to know, what is that transition? If the time that was allotted for shot spotters is to have a transition, how is that transition going? Where are we at now? What is the Superintendent Snelling saying? How are we really transitioning to something different? We can't just take something away and say, we'll figure it out down the road. We can't do that. Something that is needed or the community is needed, and maybe, we'll have these conversations with residents and what that technology look like. But I think the responsible thing to do, if indeed shot spotter is gonna be ending, what is that transition and how do we get there? And it is important for us to have, again, our Superintendent Snelling to be part of here and others as well who may have ideas. And I have talking to others who are not support shot spotters and say, we have provided those ideas. We actually have given recommendations. So what are those recommendations? So I think this will give us the opportunity, but I do want to say that it is time to give us also the opportunity for those. I cannot speak on behalf of all the districts, police districts, but I can speak on behalf of 25th District, and I have to say they have been doing a great job communicating with us. What are some of the incidents that shot spotter picks up? What is going on in our community? And having those conversations and being able to visit the SD room has been an experience to understand the technology as well. So what I'm just saying is, let's utilize this time to have conversations, but bring everyone to the table, not only one side, bringing all sides to this conversation and figure out what will be the path, whether it is shot spotter continue or shot spotter doesn't, and what will be that transition. So I just want to make sure I let that, share that with you. Thank you.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Alderman. Okay, the chair recognizes Alderwoman Lee.
Be added to this.
You want to be added to the speakers list, so you're next, and then Alderman Vasquez is after that. You're welcome.
Didn't know it was going to be so fast. I've been sitting here listening, and I really wasn't planning to speak on this. But something that I want to acknowledge so that it's here in the room. This item passed through committee. There was an opportunity for people to talk about this. So I think we have to hold ourselves accountable for, if it was an important enough issue, you would have showed up to the meeting. I go to plenty of meetings that I'm not on the committee for. We have shot spotter in the 11th Ward. My community wants shot spotter to continue to be a tool that the police can use. Every police officer that I talk to in the 9th District says the same thing. I happen to have, unfortunately, had a death in my ward. I was not in my ward, but a 53-year-old man married with a family who happened to fill in for a delivery driver at the restaurant that he manages, was delivering food in Inglewood, and in an attempted carjacking was shot and ultimately killed. There was not one 911 call that was placed for that man. Shot spotter brought the police and EMTs over there. Unfortunately, that didn't save his life, just like it didn't save Ariana Preston's life or Luis Huesca's. It's not a perfect tool by any means. But to say that we don't need as many tools as we can in this fight for public safety, and this is not just a tool for the police, it's a tool for the safety of our city. Because if we don't have this anymore, and we don't have a plan for a replacement, Mr. President, we've got to have a plan for a replacement if that's the plan. I think we haven't heard any of that yet, and I think that's part of what's missing. But to be clear, we had this discussion in committee. And I can't speak to the legalities of everything at this point. Would have been great to have that conversation a while ago, and I think we wouldn't be here. I think the additional conversation would probably be a good thing. And I hate to agree with some of the sentiment about whether or not we're actually going to do that, because there was an opportunity to do that previously. And with that, I thank you for the time.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Alder Vasquez.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I want to thank our colleagues. I'm in the 40th ward. We don't have ShotSpotter in our ward. So in some regard, I speak out of privilege to say how I feel about ShotSpotter. But I lost a brother to gun violence. And growing up in the city in different neighborhoods, and I know a number of us have, how many of you have lived in your house and heard a shooting from inside your house? How many of y'all could tell us exactly where the shot happened based on what that sounds like? Right? If any of us were in a position where we got shot and we were on a corner somewhere bleeding out, I think we'd want to know that everything possible was being done, which does require technology. So when we talk to some of our colleagues, especially those where they're seeing the most amount of gun violence and they're speaking to that truth, it's something we need to listen to, and I don't think we have fully.
I don't know why you ended up going before me, but it segues into that, and I thank you for that. It just blows my mind that people who come to work should be punished. As Alderman Lee says, I don't sit on economic and technology. But when my staff, I tell them, give me everything so I can look at what's coming up. That's why I was able to go in there and talk with our CIO. And then when I don't get the information that I need, then that's when I DNP something. Not out of politics. Never. Not since Ron, not since Lori, or anybody else. I'm the most open person, the most transparent person, the person that want to work with everybody. If you come to work, all this debate would happen in committee. Then after committee, you don't get the information you want, you can DNP it. That's what happened. DNP'd for a whole month. Ain't heard from nobody. A week before, now everybody want to talk when you got the votes to pass it. And then they want to manipulate by bringing you the information that they want to bring, the whereas clauses. That has no bearing on this at all. None. And all the debate that everybody's been having about, you're not going to hear me sitting up here trying to defend ShotSpotter. What I'm trying to do is have you have a voice on that so you can defend it or not. That's what this order says. This has nothing, everybody debate about keeping ShotSpotter. This order says nothing about keeping it. It's saying transparency, making sure that we have reporting so you can make those decisions, so that before a decision is made, that is brought before this city council body, so you can vote whether you want it or not, based on that information that my colleague before me spoke about. That's what this is about. So everybody's screaming because they didn't do their homework, lawyers and everybody else, talking about whereas clauses, talking about all of that. Read the doggone ordinance. Don't let nobody feed you something. The order says what it is. We hereby order more information to be reported out to the city council, to be published. And then we hereby, before any decision is made, that it comes before this city council body. You all who represent your constituents. If you don't want that, then say you don't want that. But don't get into making this, hey, I'm voting against ShotSpotter. You're voting against having a voice for your constituents. That's what you're voting against. You can get to that ShotSpotter part when we get all our data and all of our information. I'm open all the time to talk, change. You can knock out every whereas clause there if you want. But the order still stands of what we want. So don't make this about little minute stuff that the media didn't even pick up on. Okay? Don't make it about that. Is it legal? Yeah, it's legal. It's legal because as a body, you have the ability to contract and you have the ability to fund. It's legal. And so let's do this so that you can come back and have that vote. And whether you vote for it or not, which that conversation isn't even here today, that's down the road. You should have that voice for your community. because I'm listening to my community. And I got to have a voice for them. I have to have a voice for them. And I'm going to continue to do that. Now let's get to...
Excuse me for a second. Excuse me, please, could you refrain from being disruptive, please? If you do it again, I would have to ask you to leave, okay? Alderman Moore, please continue.
Thank you, Mr. President. And for those that say we need Snelling in here, Snelling done chimed in more than enough. He done chimed in. He done said it. Oh, how many times he got to say it? So stop making these excuses. Grow something. A heart, anything. To do and do your jobs. So don't punish people and re-refer something and start talking and want to negotiate because, whoa, I don't have the votes here. Same thing they did with the arbitrage. They send the same doggone people. It's over and over again. But that's the politics, and I tell you all the time, I hate politics. Because guess who lose when that happens? Black people, all the time. But it's the same ones, and I don't point my finger at no white folks or anything like that. It's us that hurt us. We don't need to delay this. And those conversations that everybody talked about is going to be had once this is passed, because that's what this entitles you to. You done set your own self up by not reading the ordinance. All those conversations you're going to have because you're going to get the data. It's going to be reported. It's going to be clear. And then you're going to get to vote. And you're going to say, we don't want to keep it or we want to keep it. Because that's not that vote today. This vote is today to give you that information that you need, and for you to have the authority to say whether you want it or not. That's what this vote is for. And if you vote against that for your people, then that's on you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alderman. The chair recognizes Alderman Irvin. Your motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. If the only thing you know is spaghetti and meatballs. It's my motion to close.
It's actually his
Sorry.
Alderman Moore, I recognized what you said, so I'll recognize your comment. It's Alderman Irvin's motion, so he reserves the right to finish. Okay? Alderman Irvin.
Thank you. As I stated, if all you ever know and eat is spaghetti and meatballs, that's all you'll ever know. ShotSpotter started, I think probably maybe about 15 to 16 of us were here in this council. Sold to us as the end all be all of all. Since then, other technologies have emerged. Other things have happened. But the only thing we continue to talk about is one very narrow piece of the technology that is being utilized. Ladies and gentlemen, I live on the west side of Chicago in the 11th district, probably one of the most challenged districts in this city. Do you think I only want spaghetti and meatballs? I want an opportunity to find out what else is out there that is going to help make our citizens safer. Not just one specific narrow band of technology. And again, while others have talked about this one specific piece of technology, there are 10 or 12 other different things that we have an opportunity to take a look at. Now, the cameras are here. If you want to just be the show horse, then it'll end today. But the job of this is that we have to continue to work if we want to help make the rest of this city safe. I've always contended this, that if we make the west side and south side safer, this city would be better. But we cannot tie ourselves into one specific piece of technology that, at best, just reports when something happens. Again, this is about trying to get the best for our citizens. This is about trying to get the best even for our police officers. Now, granted, I was in a meeting just yesterday with the commanders of the 10th, 11th, and 15th district, and I asked them, hey, what are you going to do when ShotSpotter ends and they look like deer in headlights? We've got to figure out something beyond one piece of technology. And again, this ordinance or this order, whatever you want to call it, doesn't do a damn thing to get us there. So again, this is about, do we want to make...
Alderman, you're out of order. Alderman.
Let's talk.
Alderman Moore, you are out of order, sir. Alderman Moore, please, you're out of order, sir. Just a second. We can do better. You are directing your comments here. Thank you for doing that. Please do not disrupt your colleagues as they speak and direct their presentation towards me. Alderman Irvin, please continue.
Thank you, Mr. President. And as I stated, this is deeper than just one piece of technology. This is something that we as a council need to explore and look at beyond the one piece of technology. That's all this is talking about. And again, as one member stated, people sound like ShotSpotter representatives. I wonder if they got stock in it. But again, we've got to get beyond one piece of technology if the goal is to make the city of Chicago safer. Now, granted, the superintendent needs to be at the table. The fire commissioner needs to be at the table. The people need to be at the table, and the conversation must be broader than this room. But again, we got to have the opportunity to do such. Because it's been stated, if it's just about ShotSpotter, the executive is clear in this decision that he will not continue it. So if you want to go ahead down that path and have nothing, then vote for it. But again, this is about a broader, open conversation about what we can do to help make the city of Chicago safer. Not just on the technology front, but we're going to start with the technology of it. So again, we know that this ordinance needs work as the alderman stated. At the end of the day, it's about a bunch of whereases that don't get us to where we need to be, and that's going to help make this city safer. So again, I believe that this item needs to go back because we want to try to create something that's going to work, something that's going to make sense. I'm sorry, this is not it. And we need to make a better effort as a city and on behalf of these constituents that live in some of the most challenged communities in our city. We've got to do better. This is not it. I renew my motion and ask for a roll call vote.
So the roll call vote will move forward. Madam Clerk, please use your E vote.
Alderman Robinson. Alderman Robinson is a yes. Alderman Yancey. Alderman Yancey is a no. Alderman O'Shea. Alderman O'Shea is a no. Alderwoman Taylor.
Yes.
Alderwoman Taylor is a yes. Alderwoman Tabares. Alderwoman Tabares is a no. Alderman Villegas. Alderman Villegas is a no. Have all those voted who wish? Alderwoman Coleman. Oh, I can't see it. Alderwoman Coleman. Have all those voted who wish? The voting is now closed.
All right. There are 23 yeas, 25 nays. This motion fails. Thank you very much. We would now return this back to Alderman David Moore.
Roll call vote on the item.
Okay, the motion has been called for the vote on this item. Members, please use your e-vote. Sure. The chair recognizes Alderman Beal.
I just want to be crystal clear that this vote is strictly about getting more data for ShotSpotter. It's not for or against getting rid of the technology. It's about asking for more data to make an educated decision on whether we should keep it or not. That's all it is.
Yeah, well, thank you for your attempt for clarification that it's not entirely accurate. This is also about funding. This is also about usage, right? So there's a roll call vote on this item.